in 314 for a shooting at Century Theaters. They're saying somebody's shooting in the auditorium.
Roger, keep your fires west of the smoke. You're cleared hot. An officer hit. Send me the world.
Don't go over that fence. Don't go over that fence. Grab the shotgun again.
Welcome to Tactical Tangents.
Welcome back to Tactical Tangents. This is Mike. This episode is brought to you by Devos Outdoor, your go-to source for lightweight, portable, and versatile lighting solutions built for the outdoors and beyond. Whether you need scene lighting for public safety emergencies or reliable area lighting for your campsite, Devos has you covered. Their LED lanterns offer variable outputs and color options with Bluetooth remote controls that provide a complete ecosystem of lighting in a compact and easy-to-deploy package. These lights are perfect for camping, hunting, search and rescue, crime scene processing, and nighttime operations. Devos optimizes your experience and alleviates your pain points with extra power banks, solar panels, and more. Devos Outdoor ensures that you have long-lasting portable lighting no matter where you are. Check out their lineup at Devos, D-E-V-O-S, outdoor.com or find them on Amazon. Again, that's Devos, D-E-V-O-S, outdoor.com. This episode was also brought to you by Loa Boots. Start your day off on the right foot with footwear that was designed for those who stand relentlessly in the face of adversity. I wear Loa every single day, for miles on canine searches and for hours on tactical operations in inclement weather. No matter what, Loa keeps me moving. Whether you run, hike, hunt, or fight, on the streets or out in the woods, Loa has the gear you need to help you conquer whatever challenges you face. Go check out their new line of trail running shoes at Loa Boots, L-O-W-A boots.com, and get outside for some fresh air and daylight. Loa, for those who know where they're going and won't stop until they get there.
Mike, we recently did an episode about fire as a weapon, where we discussed law enforcement needs to consider situations where fire is part of the criminal scene, part of the action, right? And it occurred to me, probably pretty frequently, you may roll up on a scene and it's a fire scene, right? That the house is on fire and people are maybe trapped. And I was contemplating, maybe you just say, yeah, this sounds like a firefighter problem, not a cop problem, right? Maybe you just sit there and drink your Slurpee. Is that how that works? Because you're a cop, you got to do cop things, right?
It's not my department, right? It's one of those
literally
lines.
Not your department,
literally,
right?
Yeah. There's a fire. You should probably put some water on that.
So you put the water on the fire.
Those people are going to burn up. Yeah.
So in that case, you run up, grab a garden hose, and just go to town? What do you do?
There are cases. There's one particular case I can think of where a classmate of mine from the academy, very heroically and well-intended, ran up to this fully engulfed apartment fire because people were telling her there's a baby inside. And she's like, I got to go. I obviously have to run in there and try to save the baby. But it was
today's your day, right?
But it was one of those that's an untenable that's a not winnable situation. That was, and so as she opened the door and inhaled a bunch of hot gases and smoke, she was doubled over in the parking lot when I got to her, and she went to the hospital, and they she's got some really colorful commentary about how they shoved the tube up her nose and, to look at her trachea to see her smoke inhalation injuries. I believe she told the doctor to spit on it. It was interesting. Anyway,
Roger that.
It was entertaining, dangerous, but the point is, I work with some really incredible people and they do mean well, but in the aftermath of that, it was hey, that was dumb, right? It's just not a winnable scenario. So, yeah.
And along those lines, I imagine there is some threshold where, as a cop, you go out of your department and go try to help in a fire situation. And I imagine you have a line somewhere in your head of where you're like, no, let's wait for the pros. Let's let the firefighters get here, right?
For sure. On any given day, we're out in mobile driving around all night, and the fire department typically is going to be at their station. And so we'll get there first in a lot of cases. And sometimes the fire hasn't grown to a point that maybe we can get in there and affect some good, or it's a car fire, but it's isolated to the engine compartment. And I've got a fire extinguisher in my car. I can use a fire extinguisher, but this is one of those situations.
You pull the pin and throw it. Everyone knows that.
Yeah, pull the pin and throw it.
That's
exactly. This is one of those situations where like it's healthy advice in most life circumstances to know your capabilities and limitations. Yeah, I could use a fire extinguisher on a small fire, but I probably shouldn't try to run into a burning building. And so maybe there's other ways that I can help. There's some critical thinking here. Like maybe I can prep the scene, like get some cars out of the way. If something's blocking a hydrant, move that, like clear traffic, block traffic, evacuate people, those sorts of things. But the idea is you do have to know your capabilities and limitations. Yeah, we all want to help, but what does that look like for us, right? And like I think a sober and clear sense of that is important.
So even if it is somebody else's problem, you still find work, you still make yourself useful, you still look for opportunities to help. And when there's an obvious opportunity to help, you do it, right? Peeing on the fire may not be the solution, but you got to do something instead of just sitting there drinking your Slurpee, right? So a case study on the military side, on the 14th of September, 2012, back in the day, 15 Taliban fighters dressed in U.S. Army ACU pattern. Remember that pattern uniform? It was designed to look like the cinder blocks at Fort Benning, Georgia, or Fort Moore, Georgia, whatever fort we're calling it this week.
Not Eastern Europe? Weird.
Not Eastern Europe, and definitely not Iraq, and definitely not Afghanistan. So 15 Taliban fighters dressed in these army fatigues, army uniforms. They didn't attack at Camp Bastion, which was in southern Afghanistan. They get through the wire, and they kind of wreak havoc, right? Small arms, RPGs, explosive charges, and it ended up being a 4-hour firefight between 15 Taliban and the Marines at Camp Bastion. So during that fight, pilots and maintainers from Marine Attack Squadron 211 killed one of the Taliban fighters and injured another. That's a win. And in the fight, though, 6 Harrier jets, the AV-8 Harrier jump jet, and 1 C-130 by my count was destroyed. And 2 Americans were killed, both Marines, I believe. So that was one of the bigger gunfights we had in Afghanistan, was the Camp Bastion attack in 2012. And it's funny, a lot of people don't even remember that it happened. One of the things that really stood out to me is that there were pilots and maintainers in a gunfight. And as a pilot who often works with maintainers, that's a thing that stands out to me and that I want my little pilot buddies to know about, right? So those pilots who picked up their rifles and started shooting, or their M9s and started shooting.
The M9 is a pistol for those keeping track.
Yeah. Should they have instead hunkered down and just gotten to a bunker, gotten under cover? Or should they have been like, hey, every Marine is a rifleman. I read that somewhere. Today's my day. I'm going to go, right? So do you stay in your lane, and where is your lane, and how wide is your lane in an extremist situation, right? So in this episode, I want to explore that. We're going to work through the old advice that you should stay in your lane, which is usually good advice. And also, we want to talk about when and how we want you to not stay in your lane. And we never want you to be the guy who just like shrugs and like, well, not my job.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of this is like, we tend to overcomplicate things in our minds sometimes. Like when you're driving down the road and you're in your lane, like you can make a lane change. You just need to use your blinker first, right?
Yeah, I like that. Do it on purpose. Don't just be weaving.
Yeah, right. Like just swerving all over the road. Like I just own the freaking place, right? And what comes to mind in this is also, and this is going to probably be a more relevant analogy later, but when you're merging onto like a freeway, or like 2 lanes are merging into one, you have like that zipper effect. And how much better it works when everyone sort of works together and knows kind of their role in that zipper, right? Like it goes left, right, left, right, left, and everyone just kind of works together versus like the guy that's like, no, I got to be in front. Go zoom ahead and get ahead of all these people. Staying in your lane is relevant. And then there's times where like if there's going to be deviation from that, it's okay. But like we want to do that in sync with each other. We want to do that intentionally, like Jim said, and also like use your goddamn turn signal. Like make sure people know about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So the phrase "stay in your lane" is a metaphor, right? And any metaphor, if you take it extreme enough, can break down and will break down. But it's actually, this is one of the better ones for exactly the reasons Mike's describing. It reminded me, when he was talking about that, of when I was driving in Israel. And there's a different set of norms in Israel from the U.S. A lot of Israelis are American or learn how to drive in America, right? So, they kind of understand the signs are in English and stuff.
I found that to be true in a lot of countries outside the U.S.
Yeah, but you kind of have to earn their respect in order to merge. You have to prove to them that you're willing to die.
Offensive versus defensive driving. There's a very big difference for sure.
Yeah. And it's funny, like I got pretty comfortable driving there, and I've driven in other countries in the Middle East that are actually pretty friendly, honestly, about the driving thing, because there are good reasons not to get in a fight in the Middle East.
Yeah.
But there are parts of Europe where, like, screw that, I do not ever want to drive. So, it depends, but I hate the phrase "it depends," right? You never get to just say it depends. You got to explain what it depends on, and that's kind of what we're going for today. So, considering, like, when is stay in your lane good advice? Generally speaking, usually it is good advice. We want to delineate tasks and responsibilities. That's a big part of making an effective team. I do one thing, Mike does another thing. Another guy on the team does another thing, right? There are some exceptions, but generally speaking, that's a good thing. You want to delineate tasks. In most jobs, you have an assigned task or an assigned set of tasks. In my parlance, I use the term job jar. So in my current duty assignment, I have 3 big responsibilities in my job jar. I run exercises, I run training sites, and I run lessons learned. So anything that involves those things, I consider in my lane, and I attack them aggressively. And if someone starts doing those for me, that is a big red flag that I need to do something about it, right? On a project, you may have a chunk of the project that you are responsible for, right? It's the thing you were hired to do. If you start doing a bunch of other stuff, you might drop your part of the project that everyone is expecting you to have under control. And also you may be interfering with a chunk of the project that someone else is handling, or at least should be handling. And as soon as you make it normal that you're doing it, they're often going to not do it. And that's problematic. So one example of this coming up is, have you ever worked with someone who does everything but their actual job? They're doing all the volunteer work. They're running the booster club.
They specifically stay out of their lane.
Literally ever but their assigned lane. It's fascinating to watch these people. They look busy, right? They look busy. They tend to get a lot of attention, and sometimes a lot of positive attention
here.
Yeah, but they aren't actually doing the thing everyone else needs them to be doing, and they're freaking painful sometimes to work with because of that. Like, hey, just do your gosh darn job, right? And sometimes there are good reasons why certain people, or only people in certain roles, get to do a thing, right? And oftentimes in America, it's like a licensing thing. And you can debate the ethics and politics of licensing, right? Like, how much licensing do you really need to braid hair? I don't know, but I'm pretty sure that's a thing in a lot of states, right? Yeah. But lawyers, doctors, harbor pilots, airplane pilots, there's licensing, right? Like, the flight attendant doesn't fly the plane, typically. And there are things like in the American medical system that only doctors can do, right? A big one in the military that guys screw up a lot is contracts. I am not a contracting officer in the U.S. government. I do not get to enter agreements or make commitments on behalf of the U.S. government. And if I do, it is going to cause big drama for the military because the defense contractors know how to turn that into money. So that's one of those like black letter rules. People like me do not enter agreements on behalf of the government, right? Another kind of classic one is nuclear authority, right? If you've ever seen Crimson Tide or War Games, the guy with one key has one set of responsibilities. The guy with the other key has another set of responsibilities. The captain of the boat has certain responsibilities on a nuclear submarine. And that's an area where we don't want to get creative about one guy with all the keys, right? Like, we don't color outside the lines when it comes to nuclear authority. Cool. Another area is compartmentalization. Sometimes we are doing work that is so sensitive and so secret that we intentionally break apart the team. You have one chunk, some guy in some other room you're not allowed into has some other chunk, and there are good reasons for that, right? Like if we're trying to preserve intelligence sources and methods, or we're trying to preserve a special plan or a special unit, or a certain way of accessing a bad guy country. Cool. But those should be exceptionally rare. They should be the exceptions when you do that. And you need to know that when you do that, you're accepting risk. Because the information isn't moving freely, you stand real risk of important information doesn't make it to the person who needs it. So somebody has to have all the puzzle pieces to catch stuff like that. There's a great book about that, about when we started the Manhattan Project and how they broke the national labs like Los Alamos, Lawrence Livermore, Sandia into chunks on purpose, right? That book is called Restricted Data, and it's by Wellerstein and McLean. So when I think about when stay in your lane really matters, it really matters when you have clearly defined tasks and roles. You have a clearly defined job. Wouldn't that be nice? And it matters when deconfliction is a big deal, right? Deconfliction, as an example, shooting lanes or angles, right?
Yeah, and some of this is kind of the essence of teamwork, I think. You've probably heard that phrase, there's too many cooks in the kitchen. And when I think about teamwork, one of this is like, it's not about doing the thing that gets all the glory or being the guy that does all the work, right? Like if you think about a football team, there's only one guy on the field at a time that has the ball. And it's up to everyone else to block for that guy or to try to attack that guy, right? Or to find an opening so the ball can get thrown to them. And if everyone is distracted by trying to be the guy to score the touchdown, then we collectively lose effectiveness. And the same thing is true in tactics. When we think about shooting lanes, like Jim is saying, one of the reasons that we work together in groups to clear a building is because there are so many angles to cover and one person can't cover them all. And so one of the things that we talk about when it comes to room entries, like if me and another guy are going into a room together, if I'm the second guy in the room and the first guy is getting into a gunfight, there's a good chance that when that goes to like the officer involved shooting investigation and they're like, hey, what did you see? There's a good chance I'm going to be able to say like, I don't know. I didn't see what he saw. Like I saw an empty room over here because that was his job. My job was that corner. His job was that corner, right? Now, that's not to say that, there's some nuance in there. Like we like to get two guns in the fight for a reason. And so at some point I might support him in some way, especially in like a hostage rescue type of scenario. But the idea is with all those exposures and angles and lanes of fire, my job is to watch his back while he gets in his gunfight, right? That's kind of the idea here. So deconflicting those shooting lanes, I mean, if you think about ambush and counter ambush tactics, it's the same thing. We want like an L-shaped ambush so that we're not shooting into each other. Those two lanes are perpendicular and we're avoiding creating more problems for ourselves, right? And so the essence of teamwork is to understand the difference in the roles. Like this is my job, this is his job, and why it's problematic if we start to overdo it, right? If I join his gunfight, that means there's a whole other angle that's not getting covered, and that's an issue. So, it's more than just a neat little phrase. It's also what makes you effective as a team.
So, generally speaking, good advice. Stay in your lane, know what your lane is, and do that, right? But consider the alternatives. Consider when the alternatives are appropriate. When is it bad advice to stay in your lane? One of the stories that has emerged from the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Parkland shooting is the attacker was moving around the school and was seen by several members of the staff, and they knew he was up to no good. They knew there was trouble. But several members of the staff were under the impression that by policy, only a principal could call a school-wide lockdown. So that was a problem because the principal was on vacation. Whether or not that was an actual policy, and that's debatable, is immaterial. If even one person thought it was true, and there's evidence suggesting several people thought so, you can see why that's a problem, right? At some point you say, you know what? I'm going to apply my common sense to this situation, and I'm just going to go ahead and call lockdown. I'm just going to go ahead and call 911. I'm not going to wait to be told, right?
This is an important crisis management philosophy. I mean, I like one of the things Jim alludes to there is I'm just going to call the lockdown. And at some point in crisis management, hierarchies become a lot more effective in some ways than like a democracy. Like there's no committee to be like, hey, should we call a lockdown? Let's have a conversation. Let's call a meeting and let's get on a Zoom call and discuss. It's like someone just needs to make the fucking call, right? And be like, we're doing this thing. And so when it comes to practices like this, an important distinction is whether we are saying that you have to stay in your lane is a piece of advice, or is it a practice, or is it a policy? And we've got to be thoughtful in designing and writing our standard practices or our standard operating procedures, right? Like on my team, and this is just one example, but it's widely accepted that if we're about to do a takedown or move in on something, with the exception of like a hostage rescue or something really, really, serious like that. But if we're going to do something on our terms where it's just, hey, we're going to move in and go like grab this bad guy, right? It's widely accepted that anyone can call an abort, or anyone can take lethal action if they feel like they need to, right? There's a general policy. It's in our SOPs that no individual member of the team should just independently try to end the situation on their own accord. But if there are circumstances that make you feel like I have to act or someone is going to die, then that is on you to do so, right? So there's a number of things that are widely accepted that, hey, anyone, there's certain things that anyone can do. And there's an understanding that, hey, just so you know, if that happens, you own it. You're going to have to explain or justify that. But it also comes from the recognition that the team leader is occupying one seat with one set of eyeballs, one view of the problem, right? One perspective. And there might be 12 or 16 or 18 or maybe 40 other people, like 40 other sets of eyes on the problem. And so this is important, right? That's a good thing. From an institution, like from a team perspective, to have that many sets of like sensors or perspectives on the problem, our team leaders understand that, hey, I can't see what you might be able to see. And so if you need to call an abort, or if you need to make a move in, like call for a move in or something, or take some sort of action, I trust you because you might see something that I don't see. And I want to say it again, that is a good thing, right? It's quite literally a force multiplier. You've got all these sets of eyes on the problem. So you have to sort of embrace that on some level, right? But it also assumes that every set of those eyes has a common operating picture, or what some might call like a shared consciousness of the situation, right? We're all on the same page. We all know how we operate. We all know what the stakes are, what the risks are, the standards or the expectations of the team, and how we handle those sorts of things. Like, this is why we make such a big deal about OODA loop stuff and shaping the orientation of everyone on the team. It's not enough for only the bosses to understand where we're coming from. I need everyone to get it. I need everyone to see the same picture on the team, right? So you can embrace it. It's a good thing. but it also comes with a little bit of risk and liability in a lot of ways as well, right? Because now I'm trusting the new guy to make a call, right?
Yeah, and when you're going to deviate, it is on you, right? Consider as we think about when it's bad advice that staying in your lane works if all tasks are assigned correctly, if everyone is manned properly, which I've never seen, and if everyone is actually doing their assigned tasks. In practice, that is kind of rare. It's been my experience, right? So all the tasks are assigned correctly, everyone's manned properly, and everyone's actually doing the thing they were assigned to do. When that's happening, it's a thing of beauty, but it's kind of rare. And I think you need at least a few people who are empowered or feel empowered to work outside their swim lane to catch the strays and the flyers, right?
Yeah, so understanding, or I guess going back to the understanding of the problem, that shared consciousness or common operating picture, whatever you want to refer to that as, and understanding the big picture. I need the guys that are on entry and the guys on containment to understand the difference between the two. These are the guys going inside. These are the guys staying outside, right? As one example, and there was a time on my team, a little bit before I joined the team, where we had a friendly fire incident. One of our team leaders took a round to his helmet. And it had a lot to do, what happened there had a lot to do with guys misinterpreting their role in the problem and maybe stepping out of their lane just a little bit. And that was nearly catastrophic. He, like, by the grace of God, he was okay. But we still have the helmet with the 5.56 round like through it. And we talk about it every single SWAT school. Not a person on our team doesn't know that story for exactly that reason, right? This is a big deal. And it's a story that we use to illustrate that point. So you need some discipline, right? Tactical discipline to know when to hunker down and know your role. And if the entry guys are getting in a gunfight and you're on containment, like, okay, that's their job. Like, you're the containment guy, contain it, right? But they're doing their thing and you do your thing. And there are times where, and this is kind of relevant to that story, where maybe that gunfight spills out a little bit and becomes, or at least is perceived to become, a containment problem. And now the lines get blurry. Well, then what? Right? This is a big part of that OODA loop discussion, is we have to be adaptable. There are times where, you're a containment guy, someone comes running out the back, we go after that guy, resources that went to that, right? Now there's a hole in containment because we lost people on that side of the house. So we have to switch gears and reassess. So you've got to see when everything fits into the picture and when they don't. And you need to be agile enough. And I think agility is an important tactical term, right? Agile enough to switch gears and reassess and be adaptable. It's an important tactical distinction.
I really like agility and adaptability.
Yeah.
Consider also, have you ever had people who are so low initiative that they are in the not my job camp? And, the funny thing is often they will couch that in discipline type terms. Like, no, that's not my role. Oh, I don't have the authority to do that. I have to ask permission before I can do that, right? Are those people helpful? Like, there are some jobs in some contexts.
Sometimes you just want them to just, you know what? That's actually, can you go?
That's fine. Go sit in your corner and count your pencils, which is what you think your job is. Okay, cool, right? And there are some jobs in some contexts where that works, I guess. But most of the time on high-performing teams, I want people to look for work, right? And I have an example of the not my job thing recently. My area had some pretty nasty floods. My basement crawl space flooded. I'm pumping all that out to the street. I called the city and I said, hey, city, can you help? We've got some pretty serious flooding here. And a very helpful person from the city said, well, water from your property is your property. This is your problem, not ours. And I'm like, well, thank God I pay all of those taxes to you, right? And I understood what the guy was trying to say, right? He was explaining explicitly what the city's roles and responsibilities were and what mine as a homeowner were. Got it.
I appreciate the communication. Yeah.
Yeah, love that. But also I need help. And not just I need help, everybody on my street needs help, right?
Yeah, because it's about to become less my problem and more their problem.
Exactly. And when it spills into the city's right of way, then it'll be the city's problem also. And I'll be like, hey, it's your property now. So there's that. When we say look for work, what does that mean? Right? Look for work. And it's a doctrinal thing in CQB, and Mike's going to explain that. But also, like, in the culture of American workers, there's a thing of like, get busy, show some hustle, do something, make yourself useful, right? And that's true whether you're clearing a building or mopping the floors at the McDonald's, right? If you got time to lean, you got time to clean. Get busy, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of perspectives or a lot of situations where you can apply this look for work, but one of the big ones is just like finding gainful employment. Like, you shouldn't have to be told. There shouldn't be someone that has to call every shot. If you see an angle that needs to be covered, then cover it. If you see work that needs to be done, then do it. And if you want to like raise the stakes on this, I mean, if I'm thinking about containing a house, I need to surround a house and people start showing up and I see people going to the front, but I don't see anyone go to the back, then maybe I need to go to the back to make sure that someone can see if anyone leaves out the other side, right? If we're doing a hostage rescue, a pretty high risk, high stakes kind of operation, and the breacher goes down during the hostage rescue, we need to get those doors open. So he takes fire, he goes down. I need someone to pick up the tools and open the goddamn door, right? Like, we can't sit there and make it like have a committee about that. I need someone to just get the door open. And and I can do it. The guy next to me can. Someone needs to do it, right? It doesn't matter if it wasn't your job a minute ago. It might become your job now because, and this is important.
You've got the rest of your life for that job to get done.
Well, yeah,
right?
Or the rest of the hostage's life, right? But this is the thing, right? It doesn't matter if it was your job a minute ago or not. It is our job collectively to make the assault, to affect the rescue. That's the important thing, is to understand it is our job collectively to make the assault, right? So that being said, I don't need like, and this is where I'm going to switch gears on you, right? I don't need like the admin guy at the command post to show up and insert himself if my breacher goes down, or like one of the crisis negotiators to try to jump in. Like, this is where like, no, you guys stay out of the way, right? We'll handle this. But within my team, I need my team to know their capabilities and limitations and be willing to jump in there and look for work, right? So it goes back to that, like, I'm not a firefighter. I recognize that. I'm not going to run into a burning building, but I know how to work a fire extinguisher. And so we have to like use some of those left and right limits to understand and inform our decision-making, and use those decision-making skills to figure out how I can help and how I can facilitate mission success. That's the goal.
So what worries me most about the mindset of only doing what you were explicitly told is that if we ever get into a real fight, right, us versus China, us versus Russia, us fighting the nation of Stolichnaya, whatever, we have to assume any real baddie is going to destroy or jam our command elements the same way we would to them. And if we have too many rote followers in the ranks, we are at real serious risk that those followers in the ranks will just sit there because they weren't explicitly ordered into action by a now jammed or destroyed command element.
Becomes like malicious compliance. We were told to wait here, so we waited here. We did our job.
And in this case, suicidally malicious compliance.
Right.
So we can't have that, or we will lose. It is also generally bad advice for leaders and managers. And we can discuss till the cows come home what the difference between a leader and a manager is. But anyone in a leadership role or a management role needs to at least know what's going on in the adjacent lanes. And they have to have enough authority to find and fix the weak links in those lanes.
I have to jump in on that because I feel like our use your blinker and the zipper effect when you're trying to merge on the freeway, like awareness of the adjacent lanes kind of plays into that. It's like look over your shoulder before you.
Yeah.
Just general situational awareness. I think that's an important point of like, you can't make a lane change unless you like take a glance over and see who's where.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point.
And someone needs to know how the overall traffic is flowing.
Yeah.
Right. And just keeping your head down and turning your assigned wrench is fine unless you're one of the people in charge or you seek to become one of the people in charge. A thing I specifically look for in potential leaders is hustle and the desire to make themselves useful and a sense of personal responsibility for the overall success of the organization, right? It's our problem, not just turning their one wrench. Turning your one wrench is easy. Having the situational awareness to know what's happening in all the lanes at the same time is hard, okay? So consider if you're gonna get out of your lane, one, you gotta have your job jar good. You have to master your domain. You have to see an opportunity, which means you need the situational awareness to know what's going on in the lane next to you. You have to notice something needs doing and that it either has nobody assigned to cover it or whoever's assigned to cover it either prioritized elsewhere, which happens, or is out to lunch. That also happens. Or recognize when you're in a situation where there aren't lanes, right? Like things have not gotten settled that much yet. You're in the middle of a crisis and the whole hive mind, the whole team needs to start grabbing the must-do now tasks. Someone's got to get on containment. Someone's got to get like a little vest out and start directing traffic.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to stop the bleeding. Somebody's got to set up a casualty collection point, right?
You need a detour. You need a route around. You need a... Yeah.
Yeah. So if you see a lane that isn't being filled, go fill it. Okay. And someone has to organize that chaos into lanes. You have to bring some order into it when there aren't any. Okay. And then you parse those out. You know, okay, you take this from here. You take this from here. And you don't necessarily wait to get told to do that by some boss, right? That's initiative. That's how we get the hive mind thing and the implicit guidance and control that John Boyd explains with OODA loops, right? So how do we navigate this? How do we approach staying in your lane or not? And the first step is that when you're a boss, one of the most important things you can do is help bring clarity to your team. It's one of the reasons we have bosses is for clarity, right? Make it clear what their responsibilities and authorities are. Where are their left and right limits of their lane? Okay. Explain their priorities. What needs to get done now? What's urgent versus what's important? And do you want them to stick to their assigned task? Or do you want them to show initiative and look for work? You get to set some of that, right? Are there certain tasks that are everyone's job? Say so. Understand that when you encourage collaboration and cross-functional teamwork, you are telling people to get out of their lanes. If you're talking about how fast and flat your organization is, cool. Put your money where your mouth is and let people work outside of their lane, right?
I think the key in that is recognizing that, like anything, there are strengths and weaknesses, pros and cons. Like there's trade-offs, right? And if you look at like centralized versus decentralized command, I mean, any of this stuff, the whole point of this discussion is to recognize that there are really, really important reasons to stay in your lane. And there are important reasons to be able to swerve out of it. Like that's the point. So you have to recognize that it is a little bit of both. And going back to that essence of teamwork stuff that I talked about earlier, I used the example of a football team. Like everyone on a football team, and I don't play sports ball, whatever. I watch sports ball and drink beer, but everyone on a football team has an assigned job or a task, right? but the clarity, the purpose and the mission is a unifying thing, right? Like you want to make more touchdowns than the other team, like, win the most baskets. Like there is a sense of purpose and clarity that is a unifying factor. I used the example of hostage rescue stuff earlier. If I ground everything in what is the mission or objective, it is to save the hostages. And if I could put that above all other costs, if I know that that is the unifying mission or objective here, everything becomes easier because I can circle back to that, right? So when it comes to decision making on the field, in a football example, there's got to be some acceptance for the fact that like the enemy gets a vote, things happen fast, like Jim is describing. Not everything goes according to plan or according to script. Sometimes the lanes aren't clearly defined. So this is where your job as a leader or a manager is developing those tactics and the SOPs, standard operating procedures, to bring that sense of clarity to everyone. And I don't want to make this just about the managers or the leaders, because I want people on the other end of that spectrum, the new guys, the rookies, to recognize that those people are learning too. Don't think that just because you're the new guy that your bosses aren't also learning as they go. And so it is worth asking, if you are the new guy, the low man on the totem pole, and you are unclear about where you need to be, what your lane looks like, to ask good questions. What is the mission? What is the objective? What is our purpose? And that's a way that you can lead up as well, right? And if you ask that question and they give you an answer, that might help inform your next steps. So it goes kind of both directions in that sense. But I think it goes back to the essence of teamwork. Your purpose or your mission should be unifying in that sense and should inform your decision making.
Next time you're at a Disney park, Disneyland, Disney World, Disney France Adventure or Hong Kong Adventure, whatever, I want you to notice how many managers you see walking around, often during their lunch break, with trash pickup tongs. It is a big, big part of their culture that picking up trash is everybody's lane.
Yes.
And you are never too good or never too busy to handle that part of handling a park. And consider, when they take their customer experience really, really seriously in a trashy, dirty park, in a place where the customer is paid, I don't know, maybe $1,000 to be there for a family of 4, is going to stand out. So they know that. And so that is part of their culture. And it's been part of their culture for, I think, as long as I've been alive. Yeah.
I worked at a water park in Southern California. It was one of the largest water parks in the nation, at least at the time. I don't know if it still is, but we had a very similar culture. And that was it was absolutely a cultural expectation that you don't just walk by pieces of trash. You're going to, if you're walking A to B and there's trash, you pick it up. And I think it brings up a really important point about the cultural aspect of this, in terms of, yeah, you're not the grounds guy, but it is everyone's job to have pride and care about our customers' experience here. And I think that's a really, really good example.
And consider, like, in a police unit, what is everyone's responsibility? In a military unit, what is everyone's responsibility? I want to reinforce something Mike said earlier about when you are new to a team. This is one of the things you need to figure out. You need to sort this out with your boss and with your teammates. What is your lane? What are your responsibilities uniquely? What are your authorities? What power do you have? What is your mandate? And if you don't know, query. Like, literally sit down with your boss and be like, hey, what are my left and rights here? And your boss should be able to explain to you, in most cases, what your left and rights are.
I think it's an important thing too, when it comes to your bosses might be figuring stuff out as well. Like when it comes to leadership and all of that, how powerful those questions can be.
And annoying sometimes.
Well, fair. Yes. Yeah. It can be fair and annoying, but
they're important.
It can be annoying for sure, but also fair in a lot of cases, because sometimes they they actually have to think about it. And it's like, well, it's a good thing you asked, because they don't actually know what they want you prioritizing. And there's a really common, this comes up, I think, in like business stuff where you have like a full plate and your boss is trying to pile something on you, and the response that people coach sometimes is, which project or task would you like me to deprioritize to make sure that this gets done?
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh shit. Well, actually, maybe just keep doing what you're doing, and I'll give this to somebody else. And it's not to be a smart ass. It's not to be, you're not trying to be coy about it, right? Like, but it is, I think there's value in that sense of like good communication, right? When you ask a good question, and if you get a clear and concise answer, that's helpful. And sometimes you will, and that's good. That should be helpful to you. But sometimes you will not. And I think, again, that gets it all out in the open, right? That's part of again, going back to the essence of teamwork. If their job is to direct the resources and your job is to be the resource, I think that's important to make sure that we're on the same page.
I'm going to jump on that and say that in that same vein, one of my rules is I never bring my boss a problem.
Yeah.
So
Solutions.
if I think I have the right answer, I'm going to tell my boss. I'm not going to quiz him. I'm going to say, this is what I think I need to be doing right now. Are you cool with it? Yep. Can I get a nod from you? Cool. I'm going to do it. Right. Yep. You need to know what the rules say. Is there some very specific rule saying you must or you can't do a thing? It's worthwhile to know that before you do it. One of my heroes, a guy named Charlie Beckwith, used to say, you got to know the rules in order to break them. One of the things I've noticed a lot lately is people don't know the rules. They don't take the time to literally read the rule book. And you get really funny, stupid things when people don't know the rules. They will tend to just assume they can't do it, even when they can, right? Because they're trying to be conservative. They're trying to cover their butts. And so they don't know what they can do. So they're like, it's probably against the rules, so I won't do it. And they end up in a prison of their own mind about what they can and can't do. And too many people are way too comfortable there. Aggressive leaders know exactly how far they can push their boundaries, right? Stupid leaders push their boundaries way, way, way too far. You need to know where the limits are, okay? Ask yourself, does this fit neatly into someone else's lane? And have you talked to them about it? Before you step into their lane, maybe have a conversation. When you can have a conversation, do, right? Is there time to talk to them about it? Or is this some sort of exigent circumstances, right? It's World War III, the Chinese showed up, the Russians showed up, the Stalinians showed up, and now I got to do something or we're all going to die. Okay, cool. Do the thing, right?
I think this is an area where one of the best tools for this is good debriefs. Because
yes,
the sorts of situations we're talking about is like you develop the left and right limits, and people are learning as they go. There's a degree of acceptable risk. There's things,
and you develop expectations for each other.
Yeah, there's times it's okay. There's times it's not okay to deviate from your task or your job. And you've got to recognize that your team or your organization is a living and breathing entity, and it's going to evolve, and your tactics and decisions, there's a very iterative process as we learn and as we grow, right? You don't just wake up pissing excellence, contrary to what some of you might believe. You learn from experience and you make mistakes and you grow from them. And I think like having good debriefs and talking about some of this afterwards is going to help you develop this within your team.
It is useful when you're thinking about your lane and thinking about jumping into other people's lanes to sort out what is your mission, right? Like, what is your mandate, right? The more critical your mission, the more thought you need to put into this. In my community, we take some pride in doing the hive mind thing, and we try to anticipate how to be the most helpful. As you're doing your mission analysis, consider what are your specified tasks. Is there some black letter like you do this thing, you have this mandate? And then what are your implied tasks? The stuff that isn't in writing, but you still got to make sure gets done, right? If your mission is to serve a tasty burger fast, that mission doesn't say you got to wash your hands before you cook the burger. But guess what? It's a thing you got to do, okay? The Army is huge on this. And interestingly, I almost never hear it in the Air Force, the difference between specified tasks and implied tasks. One of the reasons we have officers is so they can think things up, right? And we want them to think things up. We want them to do some mission analysis and understand the higher intent.
You guys are dreamers.
Yeah. What's my commander's dream? What's his vision, right? Communicate specified tasks. So this is what we got told to do. This is what we're going to go do. And you also have to figure out all the implied tasks. What are all the things that weren't in those mission orders that maybe needed to be? That maybe I have to explain to Airman Snuffy or Private Snuffy. Okay? Things like wash your hands before you cook the food. So to quote the Army, specified tasks are tasks specifically assigned to a unit by its higher headquarters. The higher headquarters may assign the tasks either orally, during collaborative planning sessions, or in directives from the higher commander. By contrast, implied tasks are tasks the unit must perform to accomplish the specified task or the mission, but higher headquarters, the order does not state them. The staff derives implied tasks from a detailed analysis of the order, the enemy situation, the terrain, the civil considerations. So you know all the details, and you're going to apply those details in this situation to the orders you've got. Okay? This is where commander's intent is huge, because it gives you implicit guidance and control down to your fielded forces. One way to think about this is that you need to understand and try to solve both your boss's problems and your boss's boss's problems. You also need to understand your customer or your supported forces' problems and their boss's problems. That takes situational awareness. You got to know what all of the lanes are doing and where the road is going that you're on, if you want to run with that analogy. Okay?
Yeah, this is when we talk about lower level initiative and decision making. These are those times where you might be having this inner debate with yourself of like, should I do X or should I not do X? Should I deviate or should I stay on script? This is what helps you solve that. And if your people and the people around you or your bosses, your teammates can't describe or state what the mission or the objective is, you have a bigger problem, right? If there's ever a debate about it, this is the sort of thing, the commander's intent stuff, that should help you reconcile that.
I want to tell a story real quick about situational awareness and commander's intent as it relates to, let's say, China. Does everyone in the U.S. military need to know what China's frontline fighters look like? Does the guy who works at the dining hall need to know what a Chinese J-11B looks like or what a Chinese J-20 looks like? Probably not. Does an F-16 pilot need to know what it looks like? Yeah, definitely. Does an F-22 pilot? Maybe. He's probably never going to see it face to face. He's going to see it beyond visual range on a radar scope. But there's a level of situational awareness that I do want everyone in the military to have. I want you to have some concept of what the Chinese military is all about, and how they think and how they operate and what they look like and how they do business. Because I think that drives your implicit guidance and control. And so I quizzed some people I work with recently, like, draw a J-11B. And most of them didn't. They didn't know whether that's a thing that goes on your shoulder or a thing you sit in or a tank or a ship, right? And that tells me something about the level of implicit guidance and control that we have, right? And again, do I need every person in the U.S. military to know that airplane? No, not necessarily, but it does tell me, like, maybe we got some work to do. Maybe we need to raise the baseline a little bit, right? Another thing to think of when we talk about lanes is concrete thinkers and abstract thinkers. And just how clear and detailed do instructions have to be? And one example I thought about is a restaurant. Lots of people work at restaurants. Some of those people are very, very, very concrete thinkers. Some of those people are very, very abstract thinkers, but the restaurant has to function or it goes out of business. Consider like a pizza joint. Mike, you used to run a pizza joint, right? Was it Pizza Hut, Pizza King, Pizza something?
Round Table Pizza.
Oh, nice. They had the best arcade games. That's what I remember about Mike's Pizza Joint.
Really? That's the thing that you remember?
Yes. And wow. Mike. I remember Mike. So
I thought the pizza was pretty good, honestly.
It was indeed. So there are probably tasks in the employee handbook for the pizza joint, right? And about how and when to proof the dough, I imagine. I never worked at one, but I think that's the sort of thing you would find there. Or how much pepperoni goes on the pizza. There's probably instructions on that. And there were probably lanes. I imagine you had a guy washing dishes and a guy taking orders and a guy cooking pizzas and a store manager. Something like that, Mike?
Oh, yeah. It's about...
Okay.
And what's interesting is it was scalable, right? During the day shift looked different than night shift. Day shift, you had a skeleton crew. You had a smaller crew that could do all the tasks. At night, you had bigger crew, and each person had their own role, right? Whereas like the people that worked during the day were a little bit more like ambidextrous. They were more multi-purpose. They can kind of fill any role. So, but yeah, you're on the right track.
Okay. So who turns on the lights at pizza table?
Pizza table, round table.
Yeah, round table.
Whoever opens the doors.
Where is that written? Is that in the employee handbook?
I don't think so. As the guy that wrote the employee handbook at one point, I don't think I wrote that down. Actually. Who
unclogs the toilet?
That depends on how nasty it was.
Okay.
and who was around. But if I could delegate that task, I probably would.
Is that written somewhere? Is there some like big sign in the back saying, "Hey, if the toilet gets clogged, that's
the new
John's
guy's problem."
Right? What does the manager do when the cook is overwhelmed? There's too many pizzas to make and not enough time to make them. What's the manager do when that happens?
Help out.
Like, do you make the pizzas? Do you jump in and like
potentially? Yeah, like you're looking for bottlenecks. You try to see a bigger picture, but yeah, my job as an assistant manager would potentially be to find bottlenecks and correct them. And if that meant like extra set of hands for a few minutes to try to reduce some of the load, then absolutely. Yep.
Okay. Is there ever a time the guy taking orders needs to help cook? Or a time where, like, if the guy making pizzas is screwing up so bad that someone needs to, like, talk to him about how he's making pizzas?
Yeah, you got to remember, managing a pizza place, like, a lot of your employees are, like, 16.
Yeah, arguably some training. Right?
Arguably, when I was a manager, I was, like, 17.
Like you were 18. Pro. Okay.
So yeah, you make adjustments on the fly for sure.
What do you do if someone doesn't show up to work? Or like, what if two people don't show up to work? You know, you had a crew of 4 and then like now suddenly you have a crew of 2.
You adapt. So it's funny because when we talk about SWAT team stuff and hostage rescue and a lot of the tactics and even some of the principles we've talked about here where OODA loop and adaptability and being agile and all these things. I mean, it's really easy and kind of concrete to describe in those terms, right? Or if I'm going into a room and there's a gunfight in that room and there's a corner here and a corner there. But I actually learned a lot from that experience working at a restaurant in terms of adaptability and sort of working under pressure, because there comes that point where it's like, well, I had a crew of X and now I have a crew of Y, but like the doors are open. Like the oven's running, the calls are coming in. And so like, we got to figure it out, man. And so you just roll with it and you figure it out. You have to be adaptable. And I was fortunate enough. I had the exercise or the practice of having rewritten the employee handbook at one time. And I didn't know what I was doing. I was a kid, man. Very different level of life experience that I have today if I was doing something like that. But some of those things were written and some of it wasn't. But a big part of what I recognized about my job was to be able to orchestrate and facilitate things. And so I talk about the bottlenecks. If I'm looking at, hey, like these orders are taking too long to get out, and identifying where those bottlenecks are, how can I alleviate some of that? If something wasn't clearly defined as someone else's role, well, then guess what? That means it's on me, right? That means it's my problem. If it's not someone else's problem, it's my problem. And this is where understanding that like having a written policy and procedures is one thing, but there's also practices and customs. And especially if something is written somewhere but doesn't get followed or practiced, just kind of gets ignored. This comes up actually in lawsuits. If you think about like law enforcement, use of force lawsuits and stuff like that, this is something that actually comes up where if we have a policy about X, but that policy was written in like 1997 and it just doesn't apply anymore, technology has solved that problem, or things are just different, but it never got rewritten, or there's a written rule, but no one follows it, right? There's just this practice or custom. Those things will get you. And we have to look at all that too. So when it came to restaurant management, there were certain things that I had the discretion to kind of figure out on my own. Not just the discretion, I should say, but when it comes to staying in your lane, also the expectation that I would figure it out. So like the refrigeration goes down. All right, like we got an ice maker. Let's start loading up the containers with ice and put all the food on ice. Like no one's going to tell me how to do it. I'm just going to figure it out, right? Like I got to figure stuff out. The soda machines go down. I could pull money out of the register, send someone to a grocery store, go buy some cans and bottles of soda if I have to, like if it comes down to it, right? So, there's certain things that I had the discretion to figure out on my own, certain things that I have to call and run by the owner. But going back to the points that we've discussed here about talent management, part of my job was to be able to figure those things out. And also part of my job was to develop the people that worked underneath me to know their tasks. And on busy nights, I mentioned some people had to be kind of like ambidextrous, right? Like the Swiss Army knife. I had people that I could put in different roles if I needed them. And then I also had to develop people, right? Like I need to teach this person how to be able to take this role at some point in the future. And so there's that continuity that happened there. And on busy nights, I'm going to put people in the place they belong. But on nights that I think someone might be able to handle something a little bit new, then I'm going to try to step them up a little bit. So that's part of it, right? Is being adaptable, agile enough to make changes and adapt, fill in where we needed, and learn. If people called in or people got overwhelmed, guess what? That's part of the leadership thing, right? The computers go down. Part of that leadership and management thing is like, well, if it's not in someone else's lane, guess whose lane it is? Yours. So it became my problem. So great learning experience. Highly recommended.
I liked your comment about talent management in there, where when you had an opportunity to develop someone to be more versatile, that was one of the things you tried to do, right? I like that, the cross training.
Yep.
Before you reach into somebody else's rice bowl, I need you to think through some things. First off, is your responsibility covered, or are you dropping yours to do someone else's job? And there may be a time where you do need to drop yours to do someone else's job, but I want you to do it on purpose, right? Are you going to offend somebody by jumping into their responsibility? That doesn't necessarily mean you shouldn't do it, but again, you got to do it on purpose. Google sometime Chesterton's fence. This is the principle that before you tear down a fence, you should probably know why the fence is there. At my wife's job, she is not supposed to move furniture around her office. Like if she wanted to turn her desk to face a window, she would have to put in like a work order for that, and then a work crew would come in and do it for her. That sounded ludicrous to me. I would just do it. Well, we learned that at her job, there's like a union agreement with the facility management folks. And that's a very carefully negotiated agreement. And if you screw that up, you're going to screw up the whole organization, right? So that is a delineated task to the facility management folks at her job. Now, funny thing, my job doesn't have that rule, but it probably should, because every time someone at my work moves furniture and they like unplug a computer from the network and they plug it back into the wrong network, that's a security violation. Like that's an instant, like huge drama issue for us. So we actually probably should have that rule, but we don't. And we had to institute that rule at one of the buildings I worked at. Because it came up so many times. Guys would they'd have all this initiative, they'd change some things as soon as they got to their office, and we'd be like, hang on, buddy, call the comm guys, the IT guys before you do that. Next, do you know the rules? Do you know what it is that you're doing? Right? Are you working totally out of your competence, jumping into somebody else's job jar? Are you going to actually improve the situation by jumping into it? And you got to be honest with yourself, like, yeah, I could probably do it, but I'm not going to make the situation better. I'm not going to move the ball forward for the team. Now consider, if someone is reaching into your lane, what you should do about it. I suggest that you give them the benefit of the doubt. They're probably trying to help you. You can calmly and confidently tell them to fuck off. You can tell them, hey man, we got that covered. It's under control. Here's what we're up to. Okay. But if you're going to do that, you had better actually have it covered. And I think you'd be surprised how often people say they have a situation covered when they really don't.
And usually, a lot of times when this kind of thing, that kind of battle comes up, there's some ego at play of like,
oh yeah,
not his job, it's my job. Like I want the power or the authority or
I don't want to look bad because he's doing the thing for me.
At the end of the day, it's not really about the mission. It's about getting the credit or something, some bullshit like that. And so like, if they are just trying to help out or improve mission effectiveness, maybe just thank them and like call it a good day and look for ways maybe you can help them out and maybe just be a team player. Jesus Christ.
Working out of your lane should be more the exception than the norm. You should do it with at least a nod from your boss, and at some point you need the rules and the swim lanes to catch up to reality, right? If you're frequently doing something out of your job jar, maybe you need to widen your formal job jar, or you need to hire someone else to take that responsibility. If you are constantly doing the finance office's job for them, at some point you need to tell an adult about it, because there's something wrong and broken. Like, are you actually helping by doing it, or are you just like enabling a broken system to keep being broken? At some point, you need to just start fixing it systematically. As I was working on the outline for this discussion, I thought a lot about, there's a line in the movie Zero Dark 30, which I really loved, where the department head of the spies sits everybody down at a conference table and is like, look, if you think somebody else has this under control on some other floor, you're wrong. Like, we are it. We're the ones, right? And I take that to heart. I take it to heart at work. Like, yeah, there are other units that are also doing similar things, but I don't get to assume that they've got it under control. I have to talk to them and verify that they have it under control. And if they don't, I need to make sure we have it under control because our lives depend on it. As far as the personal application of this, when I look back on my career, and such as it has been, an awful lot of the most important, meaningful, and maybe even critical, mission critical work that I've done ended up being way outside my lane. It was way outside my job description. But it needed to be done, so I did it. Also, looking back on my career, I can see how things I did to make myself useful or find work, two things that I was part of my ethos growing up, I can see how that came off wrong to other people. And I only now, 20 plus years into this, do I have the self-awareness to recognize how that came off. Especially if those people were very concrete thinkers, especially if they were very process-driven, and especially if they were protective of their turf. Sometimes for good reasons, sometimes for bullshit ego reasons. And I probably would have been a little bit more delicate about it in most cases. But hey, if you don't want me to crawl into your job, maybe do your job. Swim in your lane. Okay. Further, consider in a high-performing team, we don't have time for unitaskers. Mike talked about the ambidextrous cats or the versatile cats. We need versatile people. You need to be able to drive in whatever lane the situation dictates. You need to be whoever your nation needs you to be in that moment. That's what high-performing teams have, are people who can swim strongly in whatever swim lane they're in. I'm reminded of an inspirational quote by Heinlein. He was a sci-fi writer guy. He said, a human being should be able to change a diaper, plan an invasion, butcher a hog, con a ship, design a building, write a sonnet, balance accounts, build a wall, set a bone, comfort the dying, take orders, give orders, cooperate, act alone, solve equations, analyze a new problem, pitch manure, program a computer, cook a tasty meal, fight efficiently, die gallantly. Specialization is for insects. So hopefully in here I've kind of made it clear my philosophy on this, which is, it is generally good advice, and you got to be careful how you do it. But if you're resting on that's not my job, you're probably part of the problem.
Solutions and mission oriented, for sure.
Yeah. I think that's all I got.
Be part of the solution.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've said what I need to say, Jim.
Cool. Be safe out there. Be smart in there. Stay in your lane until you need to not stay in your lane.
Use your blinker.
Ha. Adios.
All right, guys, that's all we got for tonight. This episode is brought to you by 09 Holsters. We talk a lot about people, ideas, and hardware on this show, so when we invest in equipment, we always think in terms of experience first. 09 is helping you figure out how to carry the gear you need to be effective. They are built by cops, for cops, with a minimalist design and bomb-proof durability. Radio cases, flashlights, body cameras, even canine remotes, you name it, 09 has been filling a void in tactical duty holsters for more than a decade. Go see what they offer at 09 Holsters, that's ZERO, the number 9, holsters.com. 09, built to win the fight.
And this is Jim. This episode is also brought to you by ManusX. We've talked a lot about the tactical fantasy on this podcast, and one of the quickest ways to break your tactical fantasies and actually improve your performance is by getting real feedback. One of the ways you can do that is with ManusX. You're not going to get better at shooting on your own. You need practice, data, and coaching. And you need to make the most of your ammo with good live and dry fire training. Manus is a family of training devices that tracks you while you train. It times and tracks everything you do in a drill and coaches you as you go. It is indispensable to taking your shooting to the next level. Go find them on manusx.com.
Don't forget that we put out new episodes on the 1st and the 15th of every month. If you like what we're doing, you can head over to Patreon, give us $1 for each new episode. That money's going to go back into bringing you good content. If you want to interact with us, you could find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We are at TacTangents. You can also email info@tacticaltangents.com. All right. That's all we got. Good talk.